My Hero Academia is back, which is exactly the excuse I need to keep talking about it. Just kidding, I really don't need an excuse to keep blabbing out my favorite show, none of you can stop me. So, Season 4 has officially begun, and I think it's time that we talked about obstacles. Now, while you may know obstacles as hurdles in sports class or that one annoying person, they can also be found in written fiction. In fact, fiction is full of obstacles. As a story is set up, built up, and evolved, it needs to run into obstacles in order to develop in an interesting and substantial way. Star Wars would be incredibly boring and lack any real meat if the mission to destroy the Death Star would happen without any upsets and hurdles. Similarly, most authors will create obstacles for their characters and story in order to force the story to evolve and develop. And sometimes these obstacles come in the form of characters, which in turn create a hurdle for another character. In these cases, these obstacles are called foils. As a literary device, a foil is a way by which the author can highlight, reveal, or even develop certain aspects of their characters. For example, Draco Malfoy is a foil to Harry Potter, as he forces Harry to not only face the reality of the divide in ideology in the wizarding world, but also emphasizes Harry's purity by contrasting it with his maliciousness. Contrast, however, is only one attribute of the foil. It can also work through similarity, superiority, inferiority, etc. Essentially, a foil is a character whose existence develops and progresses another character. But enough literature, let's talk anime. If I asked you which are the two most important characters in MHA, you might answer Deku and Bakugo, or Deku and All Might. And while both of these are acceptable answers, I would actually say it's Deku and Shigaraki. As the main character and main villain respectively, their positions in the story are crucial. And one thing that has been consistent is that their development is parallel. They both start out as the incompetent, bumbling, insecure successors to larger-than-life, iconic symbols. Their first encounter marks a milestone for both of them. Deku's first encounter with a real villain, and Shigaraki's first move against real heroes. They both get influenced and refined by their meeting with the hero killer Stain, and they both lose their mentor in Kamino Ward. These parallels have been consistent enough that it's reasonable to call it a fundamental aspect of their relationship. And so, it would stand to reason that it continues on like this. Which is exactly correct, as both Shigaraki and Deku are exposed at the beginning of Season 4. At the end of Season 3 and beginning of Season 4, Deku meets Mirio Togata, an older student and one of the big three, UA High's most acclaimed and promising heroes in training. Mirio is many things, but most importantly, he is almost a perfected, ideal version of what Deku should be. His control over his quirk is awe-inspiring. Born with a borderline useless power, he refined and trained his quirk to use it to such a degree that he can become a force to be reckoned with. Not only that, but he has utilized this mastery to successfully climb to the top of UA, being an ideal of the school. And, more importantly, he is the perfect mix between heroic determination and uplifting cheerfulness, filling every room he's in with laughter and putting hearts at ease, all with an indestructible smile. In essence, he is already on his way to becoming a symbol, thus thoroughly solidifying that he is an objectively superior version of what Deku wants to be. At the same time, Shigaraki meets Kai Chizaki, better known as Overhaul. While their meeting is considerably more disastrous, it establishes the same dynamic that Deku has with Mirio. Shigi meets a superior version of himself. Overhaul is a cunning Yakuza gangster who has managed to amass and maintain a massive underground organization, the Shiha Saikai, even despite the reign of heroes and the Yakuza's supposed defeat. More importantly, he outperforms Shigaraki in every aspect that matters. He is a charismatic, manipulative, and socially capable leader, as opposed to Shigi, who can barely hold a normal conversation. This is shown especially well when Overhaul has a completely casual conversation with Mirio and Deku when they first meet. Also, he is able to command and oversee a large group of subordinates, while Shigi struggles to use the 10-ish members he has efficiently. Even Overhaul's quirk is a straight up better version of Shigaraki's, as Overhaul can instantly deconstruct anything he touches with any part of his hands, while Shigaraki's decay can only destroy slowly once all 5 fingers touch something. Therefore, Overhaul's quirk specifically gets rid of Shigaraki's weaknesses. Also, like Shiggy, Overhaul has a concrete goal: bring the Yakuza back on top. But, unlike Shiggy, he not only has a goal, but a concrete plan as to how he will attain that goal. Through these descriptions, you should have noticed the extreme similarities not just between these situations, but between Overhaul and Mirio. Namely, that they are foils. They both enter the story with one distinct purpose: to expose the weaknesses of Deku and Shigaraki respectively. While Deku still struggles with the incremental control of One For All, Mirio has attained an incredible level of fine-tuned control over his quirk that, just like One For All, would be insanely dangerous if used uncontrollably. But unlike Deku, Mirio has already gone through grueling training to master this power. Horikoshi goes as far as to give Mirio similar scars to the ones Deku has, to really hammer home this dynamic. Additionally, the constant smile on Mirio's face is much closer to All Might's ideal than the usually concentrated, grim expression Deku has. Similarly, Overhaul's driven nature and elaborate schemes put any and all half-baked plans Shigaraki has thrown together to shame. Overhaul has a fine, precise overview of his positions, ambitions, and plans, as well as an incredibly efficient hand over his subordinates, traits which make Shigaraki look like a bumbling fool by comparison. The fact that Overhaul's quirk is essentially just a faster, more deadly version of Shigaraki's quirk reinforces this superiority. Now that we have established what Overhaul and Mirio do, the question is, why do they do that? Why is it necessary to expose these weaknesses in our hero and main villain? Well, it all comes back to their function as foils. Deku and Shigaraki, as these incredibly important characters in the story, will have to go through a lot of growth. And Mirio and Overhaul are parts of that. They don't just expose Deku and Shigaraki, they test them. Up to this point, most obstacles Deku and Shigaraki faced were either internal weaknesses or opposition from the other side of society. Deku always either struggled against himself or a villain, just like Shigaraki always either struggled against himself or a hero. Both of them eventually overcame these obstacles, as they faced their weaknesses and defeated their opponents. But now, they are faced with a new situation. Not an ideologically opposed enemy, not a personal weakness, but someone from the same, quote, side that, to put it bluntly, is simply and objectively better than them at what they do. They face the opposition, they face themselves, and now they have to face an ideal version of what they should be. Both Overhaul and Mirio perfectly exemplify the image of a successor to the previous generation of heroism and villainy, respectively, with both of them living up almost flawlessly to the legacies of those two sides. And so, it is essential for Shigaraki and Deku that they encounter and clash with these images, as it is necessary for them to overcome them if they truly want to become the next symbols of peace and chaos. And do they manage to do that? Well, this is where we have to say goodbye to our anime-only friends, as this section will spoil the later half of the Overhaul arc. If you don't care about spoilers, keep watching. Otherwise, take care, I love you. We good? Good. Overhaul and Mirio are both perfect encapsulations of the legacies of All Might and All For One. But that's the thing. They emulate those ideas too perfectly. Mirio may be as strong and as joyful as All Might, but he is also just as reckless. While he initially seems to be calmer and more realistic than Deku, it quickly becomes apparent that he still harbors a deeply idealistic and impulsive side. While those aspects are technically positives, as they both inspire great heroism, in the case of Mirio, they lead him to be reckless and plunge headfirst into situations. Just like All Might used up his precious time solving small-time crimes and ended up weakened because of it, Mirio obsesses over salvation so much that it ends up costing him his quirk when he jumps in front of Eri. Meanwhile, Overhaul may be a cunning, capable leader, but he also possesses one fatal flaw. While he is constantly called the young leader and tries to differentiate himself from the Yakuza of olden times, he still follows their core values: business, respect, and mutual gain. And while those have served him and his predecessors well, they make him rigid and unflexible. He is so convinced of these values that he couldn't fathom anyone acting outside of them, which is exactly why he fails to predict Shigaraki's betrayal. To him, it simply doesn't make sense. Equally, he underestimates the hero's effort and, just like All for One, falls at the hands of a cornered hero and his spirit and strength he had failed to consider. And so, both Deku and Shigaraki overcome their foils and grow further, both of them more experienced and more determined than ever. It is not a coincidence, after all, that past this arc, Deku's control greatly increases and Shigaraki's planning and prediction becomes more sophisticated. But this is just one way to read and understand the Overhaul arc. Horikoshi takes great care to construct many varied and interesting dynamics and meanings within his story, and I encourage you to find some by yourself. And maybe we'll discuss more of them in future videos. The thing to remember is that there is never one authoritative, completely correct reading of, well, anything in literature. But for now, thank you for watching, take care, and see you all next time. Bye bye.